Good morning and welcome to Dirt 3. Yep, it's our third episode of the property market forecasting website, and it's a very exciting moment for me this morning because we are broadcasting to you from the brand new Henry offices here on the beautiful island of Mustique, as you can see from the plant life around me. No, I joke, obviously I joke. It's not Mustique, it's Bournemouth. We're slap bang in the centre of Bournemouth, but we are broadcasting or webcasting from Henry's new offices. So this is a very exciting moment. Having endured the indignity and the squeeze of filming the last two editions of Dirt in my own kitchen at home with the Heath Robinson setup of open umbrellas hoisted up to block out the skylights. Now we're here in Henry's new home, and we've got lots to talk to you about. I have had a few comments about the fact that the new webcast is called Dirt. I've been asked why. Well, the rumour that the creative team said to me, we're going to call it Dirt, it's an acronym. And then when I said, well, what's it an acronym for? They said, well, that's up to you to invent. It's just not true. It's developer insights and residential trends. And that's what it's all about. It's all about us identifying the trends that we can forecast exactly what the market's going to do over the midterm. I'm hoping to do that here for you this morning and take you through what things are going to be like until the end of the year. And I'm out of step with the other industry pundits. I'm probably the only one who thinks quarter four is going to turn out the way I'm going to describe it at the end of today's webcast. All right, so when we did Dirt 1, we put in there a lot of predictions. All of them came true. And I have to say, I was quite surprised to see this picture appear on LinkedIn. When I say this picture, it wasn't so much that picture, it was more this picture, which is it's a bit strange. I need to move that slide on the deck because it's making me feel, it's not quite right. AI has got a lot to answer for. Dirt 2, well, we didn't do quite so well. I did away with the applauding viewer that we normally have, or that we have had on this slide in the deck, because we didn't quite get it right. I suggested when I did Dirt 2 that we would see peace in the Gulf anytime soon. It was my take that Donald Trump was going to be so driven by the need for all of the American corporations to start making proper profits again that he would make sure that peace happened in the Gulf no matter what it took. And of course, since then, things have actually moved backwards a tad. Although, as I film this webcast now, I understand there hasn't been a shot fired for about 36 hours. So we'll see. We'll see. I could have just said the worst possible thing and talked it in. I said in Dirt 2 that interest rates were much more likely to fall than increase. We haven't had an interest rate call on that yet, but I am changing that tack now. I think they are going to stay where they are. And of course, Thursday, day after tomorrow, is the big MPC meeting, and we'll find out where interest rates are going to go. But we'll touch on that later in the webcast. We talked about a potential burn and bounce, and to be fair, there has been a burn and bounce. The new prince on his white Charger has ridden into town, and everybody's over the moon about it. You wait until you see the consumer confidence figures in a minute or two. I do think there's going to be a budget at some point, but not yet. Clearly, I still believe that price is going to end the year level, and I still believe that volumes are going to end the year at 1.2 million. Okay, that gives you a sense of where we were at the end of Dirt 2. So where are we now? So where do you go when you're actually trying to forecast what the market's going to do in the short and the medium term? We have to start looking at the things that actually affect the way that house buyers actually think. And then on the downsides of that uncertainty factor is rearing its ugly head again. And if there is one thing a home buyer hates, it's uncertainty. Because once you make that huge investment, probably the biggest investment that you're going to make in a lifetime, you need to be pretty confident about your income, your outgoings, where your life is going to be taking you over the next few years. That uncertainty is a big deal. interest rates, I've actually got interest rates in downsides, and I've got it in the next slide in the deck in upsides as well, because I believe that interest rates is actually a bit of a bonus. The one thing that is becoming apparent now is that the house buying public are coming to terms with the fact that 4.5%, 4.75%, that sort of rate for a mortgage is the new normal. You know, what happened for us after the financial meltdown in 2008 and 2009 with interest rates at rock bottom, virtually zero, which meant that you could actually get a mortgage at 1.75 and 2.25%, they're gone. You know, that was a generational moment, and we won't see the like of those again unless there is another financial meltdown or some similar crisis. So it's the new normal. And recently, as you'll see when we run through the deck, that there has been some downward pressure on interest rates. Affordability, people cite that as a downside. Affordability is a combination of factors. And the combination of factors, obviously interest rates, obviously what people are earning, their salaries, and then of course the price of the property they're buying. And it is a mix of all three of those things that actually gives us our affordability index. Let me tell you, affordability is better now than it was a year ago, because in between that time we've had wage inflation running at about 4.5% and house price inflation, well, despite what the blooming indices will tell you, we'll talk about those in a tick, are virtually at zero. Houses effectively have got cheaper. Then, of course, we've got a bit of oversupply. There are more properties on the market now than there has been at any time since 2023. So there's a bit of oversupply going on. And inflation. I've got that on the next slide too, because it's a good news inflation story. The reason I've stuck that in there on the downsides with a question mark is every economist, every economic pundit that can get their 6 eggs on the telly, give them half a chance, they'll tell you that it was a complete glitch that inflation didn't go up in June, and it will most certainly be going up in July. We'll see, won't we? What about the upsides then? Well, I've got interest rates on here because I think it's an upside. I think that they'll stay at 3.75% on Thursday. We'll see. And I think inflation is an upside too. Who would have believed that we were going to see inflation come down in June? We'll go into that in a tad more detail in a moment. We've got a big jump in consumer confidence. It's the burn and bounce. I did say there was every chance there was going to be a burn and bounce, and we've got suppressed demand. I did a presentation yesterday where I talked about suppressed demand, and I tried to create the image, create that the characterization of it as somebody with their foot on a hose, and you put your foot on the hose and you stop the natural flow of the property market down to a trickle. And when you take your foot off that hose like that, well, then the first thing that happens is you get a whoosh. And I believe that we're on the verge of that. What I didn't do yesterday when I did that presentation was explain this. I explained the whole thing before I went. So the property market currently is a bit like that. So you can imagine I've got one or two little looks for that. Okay, I want to take you through my thinking. So I want to take you through my thinking because I am out of step with most commentators, most pundits over where this year is going to go and how we're going to see the year out. I want to take you through just this process of my thinking here. I've put what I consider to be the main factors in the decision-making process into 3 different categories. The first, things that actually affect the mood of our prospective buyers, prospective house buyers, the house buying public. Stuff we can do nothing about. So if, let's say, all-out war breaks out, the Russians sail down the channel, there's nothing that we can do about that, and that will most certainly affect everybody's mood. Then we move on to the financials, so the cost of mortgages and people's affordability levels and stuff. Well, certainly in the house building industry, there is some stuff that we can do about that. You have the ability to tweak margins, to introduce incentives. You can actually affect that. Then this column here, which I love, I've called it the Make Me column because it starts with the letter M. Bit of alliteration on the slide in the deck. You actually have the power to change minds. Let me put what I consider to be the key elements in the decision-making process into those categories and show you what I mean. There's nothing we can do about the uncertainty that's going around at the moment. we have to live with that. Consumer confidence, whether that's getting worse, whether that's improving, again, that comes from a variety of factors. The happiness and the general mood of the great British public. Well, it's summertime. Generally, the happiness factor is on our side. The trouble is when we get too happy, we put off the dreary reality of having to buy a new home. And then, of course, the economy, which actually affects the mood and affects confidence, affects absolutely everything. Again, nothing we can do about that. But when we see the consequences of that and we see what effect that has, those are things that it is within the gift of a developer to do something about. So the prices, everybody has the opportunity to discount prices, of course. But so earnings, of course, while we can't actually affect earnings up and down, we can affect what they will pay for, what they will buy. Interest rates, we can work with financial advisors to subsidise mortgages and to keep interest rates low or keep them fixed, take away the uncertainty. Obviously, that then points towards affordability as well. Mortgage availability, working with independent financial advisors, with your IFAs, that is most certainly the sort of thing that actually we can, as an industry, have an effect on. And then over here, I love this column, the make me column. Go on, make me buy it. We talk about the needs and the wants. So a needs-based market, the wants-based market. The thing with the needs-based market is it never goes away. If I'm buying a new house because my family's having a baby and I'm going to need some more space, it doesn't matter what Donald Trump does and it doesn't matter what interest rates do, I'm still having the baby. So the needs-based market does not go away. So you put your foot on that hose and that needs-based market is in the bubble that is appearing behind your foot that's going to come out as soon as the foot is lifted. The wants-based, slightly different, but it's absolutely within your gift to make your offer, to make your proposition entirely desirable. That's something you can most certainly do. And fashion. Let's not drown in a sea of sameness. Let's be different and let's be fashionable and let's be attractive and let's get the wow factor back. All of that. And of course, availability. There's a lot of availability of product out there right now, but mainly in the second-hand market. And in fact, everyone's trying to bring down their work in progress numbers. So there is a potential issue there. So availability is a big factor and one that you can obviously have a big effect on. Okay, that for me is the stuff that goes into the formula, the calculation about where the market's going. Let's take these things one by one. First of all, let's see what the media are saying. Now, it obviously has not escaped my attention that a huge proportion of the population now, particularly in the younger age groups, actually get their news. They bring their news in from social media, whether that's a TikTok, whether that's Instagram, whatever it might be, even Facebook for the very old people amongst us. Now, here's the thing. The people in that younger age group actually would sooner believe a short form video on TikTok than they would the BBC these days. Yeah. I'm not quite there yet. The BBC might have its faults. I think I'd still rather get my news off them than TikTok. But all of the stuff that I've got in here are newspaper clippings or trade press clippings or newspaper online images. The thing is, they tend to seed those stories in the social media. What you see in the social media are the results of things that people see in mainstream media. So I'm not ignoring social media, but I do think mainstream media is the source of many of those stories and many of those discussion threads. Let's kick off, obviously, with the new cabinet, all been announced last week. And obviously, our housing secretary is Angela Rayner. What can we say about that? Well, not a lot. Not a lot at this stage. We'll come back to that in a moment or two. But she insists, she's absolutely determined that the government will build the 1.5 million homes that they promised to build during the lifetime of this parliament. There's 2 years gone, and so far I think they've built about 245,000. I'll do a little bit of maths here. So 3 years to go, 1.255 million left. Yeah. Okay, go on, Angela. Let's see how you get on. I'm sort of thinking she's probably not going to do it. The Matt Coulson comment in the Telegraph, this was at the weekend, bringing back Angela Rayner's Andy Burnham's first mistake. The press aren't, or certainly the right-wing press, are not at all positive about it. How about this story? This was in the Times. House sales slow as mortgage rates and political chaos spooks buyers. Really? Have a little look at the consumer confidence numbers in a moment or two. This, obviously, the Daily Mail has picked up the guy who's brought a class action against 7 listed developers for colluding and insider trading, sharing information. I just somehow cannot believe that works for all sorts of reasons, but the story is out there and in the press. That doesn't play well for the industry, in my opinion. The Telegraph, mortgage rates fall at fastest pace in almost 2 years. Heavens. They were almost tempted to use one of the P words, weren't they? Plunge or plummet. I could feel the copywriter there, feeling the urge. I'll tell you what I did want to include in the Telegraph. I find this quite extraordinary. This is, if you go onto the Telegraph and you go into their property section, that's what you get. That's their little logo identifier for the property section. Why would you have a picture of houses plummeting to earth through the sky and a great big red arrow pointing to hell? In terms of giving your readers the impression of where the property market's going, I find that quite extraordinary. Still, maybe that's just me. I don't know. It's two takes of the same story. So in The Guardian, this was in The Guardian, this was the 7th of July, so it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. UK house prices rise for the first time since the start of the Iran war. Well, look at that. House prices are going up. Extraordinary. And then, this is the Daily Express. A week later, average UK house prices plunge. There's the P word. We've got the plunge going on. Thank goodness it's not a plummet. Otherwise, we'd all be in the toilet. Plunge by eye-watering sum as distracted buyers trigger slowdown. That, by the way, that story was triggered by the Rightmove press release. And we all know, don't we? We all know Rightmove, they're asking prices. They're not even house prices, are they? They're not even the prices people pay for houses. They're asking prices, which went down by 1% from the month of June into July. This is Trade Press, the negotiator. And of course, they've got it right. Asking prices hit by larger than usual summer drop. So the Express take, prices plunge, eye-watering. We're all going to hell in a handcart. The negotiator, asking prices hit by larger drop. OK, so that gives us a sense of the media, doesn't it? So how has that left the mood of the nation? Well, I like to put this little compendium of pictures together. I think it works quite nicely in terms of summing up the stuff that's going on that actually affects the mood of the nation. One or two of these, sharp-eyed ones amongst you, one or two of these will recognise that they were on last month's, because we've still got Trump and we've still got Netanyahu and we've still got Khomeini. So all of those players going on in the Middle East crisis, they're all still there, which means, of course, all the ships are still stranded in the Strait of Hormuz. But of course, now this lot have got involved. If you actually look at this picture up here on the top right hand side, it's the Houthi rebels who've decided that they are going to wade in and they are going to start attacking Saudi Arabian shipping in the Red Sea as well. So that's just added more fuel onto the fire. That's still a tinder cake. And talking of fuel onto the fire, picture I've got up over here, that was actually taken in Spain, fighting the forest fires and the wildfires in Spain, and of course in France, which are raging at the moment all around the city of Bordeaux. And that does affect the mood of our buyers. I know we've done Wimbledon now, but it was a July thing, and that affects how people have reacted and confidence. We've still got a heat wave going on. There are still people on the beach. It's another warm day in prospect today. So that's all going on. World Cup's just finished now, and Spain beat Argentina in the final. It would have been a shame if that result had gone any other way, wouldn't it? OK, unless you're Argentinian, for which I apologise. But that essentially gives you the mood of the nation. And then, of course, really affecting the mood within the industry, these are the people that are actually going to be dictating so much about the future of the market and of the industry generally over the next 3 years. Or maybe to the end of next week when we have a new Prime Minister, who knows. So I've tried to trawl through on the internet to find out the comments that these guys have made in the lead up when they were in opposition, as well as since they've been in government, the comments that they've made about the industry and about house buyers, to try and give you a sense of what they're going to do next and try and give me a sense about it too. Well, the best I can get on housing market from Andy Burnham is no more rough sleeping. To be fair, John Healey, who, well, obviously he was sacked. No, he wasn't sacked. He resigned as Defence Minister in the Starmer government because he felt that Starmer was never going to commit the sort of money that the defence budget needed. You've got to feel he's got his head screwed on. He has come out publicly to say that he is backing house building. I think he's probably backing it more on the affordable, the old council houses coming back. That's more his driver, but he's certainly backing house building. And of course, Angela Rayner, who famously said in an interview over the weekend that building these 1.5 million houses was going to be difficult, but she likens it to running a marathon in under 5 hours. It's going to be difficult for me to do it, but I will do it. I will do it. Yeah. I should get into training for that marathon, Angela, if I was you. I think looking across the piece, for me, I'm seeing that over the next 3 years, there will be no dramatic and immediate effects. I can't see any initiatives like the return of Help to Buy or something really that would have a real big effect on the market. There is the potential change of stamp duty and the introduction of another sort of property tax. That again would have a dramatic and massive change. But quite honestly, I'm excluding that from my thinking right now, because number one, I think it's quite a long way away. And number two, any sort of change like that would really have a very big effect. So to put it into the numbers now would be misleading. We will keep a weather eye on what these guys say about the industry and the sort of comments that they make. Okay. Let's have a look then at where consumer confidence is right now. We know how important these numbers now are. They have a massive effect on the way that the market's going to move. So first of all, in terms of the overall index score, and for those of you that have never seen this chart before, this is the GfK. The GfK Consumer Confidence Barometer. They in their previous guise as NOP, they have been carrying out this survey for 50 years in the UK, where they asked 2,000 people, are things going to get better or worse over the next 12 months? And they give us the results here. It's a fantastic piece of research. It's great data, very reliable. So the overall index score is in overall minus. Anything above the yellow line is positive. Anything above the yellow line means that the majority of respondents have said things are going to get better, not worse. And you can see where we are. But look at this. Here's the burn and bounce going on here. Look, that uptick. And this data was collected between July the 1st and July the 15th. There is a definite and significant uptick. The uptick. The green line here is the next 12 months a good time to make a major purchase? So a new kitchen, a major renovation at home, a car, a house. So again, we've got this. So we've got these lows, but they've stayed fairly consistently low, which reflects the sort of market that we're in. When you've got, the sales per live site per week hovering between 0.5 and 0.6, which is historically difficult and low numbers, that reflects beautifully this sort of confidence picture here. And that uptick is important to us. If we then take a look at where people see the UK economy, ouch, I've not seen levels this low since the Truss Kwarteng mini budget in September 2022. You can see, is the UK economy going to get better or worse over the next 12 months? Oh, no. But just look at those last three surveys. There has been a definite resurgence there, still very deep in the negative, but a real comeback. And finally, and most importantly, the last question, are your own personal finances going to get better or worse over the next 12 months? These are the ones, this is the question that really matters. How are you going to do next year? And you can see that the respondents are roughly split 50-50. It stayed absolutely on that line all the way over the last 2 years. and has upticked in the positive for the first time since last March. So we've now got a positive response on that. And that is really important when we think about what the market's going to do in the last quarter. Okay, a couple of slides, in the deck from the last RICS report. This was their June survey, and you can see here, we all know that the surveyors, the country's surveyors, are in fact the most pessimistic group of professionals in the UK. I have it on good authority at their headquarters, just off Parliament Square. All of the windows above ground floor level stay locked in case they fling themselves out when something bad happens. Momentum remains weak. Okay, that's what we'd expect them to say. But hey, wait, hang on. Some indicators point to the recent downturn in activity easing. If the RICS are saying easing, you better get the champagne out. That's what I say. Let's have a quick look at the numbers. So this is the past. So this is what's gone in the past 3 months, regional prices. So pretty much Scotland and Northern Ireland aside, pretty much throughout the UK, the surveyors are reporting that over the last 3 months, prices have been weaker than the previous 3 months. New buyer inquiries tell the same story. So everything below this zero line here means the majority of people that answered the survey said that things were worse rather than better. But these are the regional price expectations over the next 3 months. Scotland and Northern Ireland again. So the surveyors believe that prices are going to be under pressure over the next 3 months. Bear in mind, it's June survey. So they're saying for July, August, September, prices will be worse rather than better. Hey, no shit, Sherlock. I agree. I mean, that for me is an absolute no-brainer and certainly reflects exactly what I think. Volumes, sales expectations, again, lower through the summer months. Absolutely. It's when we look at this last slide and this part of the deck here. So these are the 3 month numbers, the solid mauve line here. These are volumes, sales expectations. So majority think volumes will be lower over the next 3 months. But when you look at the next 12 months, that is in positive territory. And that's exactly what I was saying last December. We will end up with 1.2 million transactions this year. I am absolutely confident. And when we look at prices, these are the surveyors we're talking about here. In the next 3 months, you can see there's a considerable majority think that prices will be lower. And these are the people that are doing the valuations, will be lower. But look at this. For the 12 months, the majority of surveyors believe that prices will be above where they were in the previous 12 months. How about that then? You heard it here first. Well, possibly you didn't, but at least you heard it here. These are mortgage approvals. I've just put this chart on really quickly just to show you this dip here. These lines here represent, the orange line is remortgaging, so we can push that off to one side. These are borrowing for other purposes, the mauve line here. The line we're interested in is borrowing to purchase a house. That great big swipe there was the stamp duty change. That swipe there was the little stamp duty change, remember, at the end of March 2025? And you can see we've been bobbling along about 65,000 mortgage approvals a month. 65,000 mortgage approvals a month, by the way, generates 1.2 million transaction volumes a year. I won't bore you with the maths, but they do, trust me. And there has been a dip down for mortgage approvals, but that's the May numbers, down to 56.2. This is obviously people preparing for it for being a quiet summer. Everything points to that, everything. So the key metrics, interest rates, where are they going to go? Well, here's the first thing then. We know Thursday, day after tomorrow, the MPC meet. He's the danger man here. This is Hugh Pill. And he's one of the hawks in the MPC. He voted for interest rates to go up last time in the 7-2 vote, and you can feel pretty sure that he'll be voting the same again. He has concerns about the economy, fair enough. I am hoping that there will be enough common sense in the rest of that MPC for interest rates to stay the same. I will make a call on it. I am convinced interest rates will stay at 3.75%. When we actually get the shout on Thursday. Generally, this is the way interest rates are moving in terms of trend. Over here, 2-year fixed, 95% down to 60% loan to value. You can see where they're going. When you start looking at 75% loan to value over different terms, the 10-year money is the most expensive. So the markets are still thinking that the longer term money is going to be expensive. But for now, for buyers for now, a 2-year fixed mortgage on average, 90% loan to value is just over 5%. And I don't think that's bad. I think that's quite reasonable. First time buyers can get deals out there 4.5% if they search hard enough. And a 5-year fixed 75% loan to value, well under 5% at the moment. So, you know, that gives us lots of opportunity to do deals. Inflation has been the extraordinary good news. Everybody predicted, not me, everybody predicted inflation was going to rise in June. Well, in May, the CPI, which is the measure, the government's measure of choice, it's the one that all the newspapers pick up these days. In fact, it's the one that everybody uses other than the junior doctors who've justified their strike. They don't strike anymore, do they? But they justified their action based on RPI. But CPI, Consumer Price Index, dropped from 2.8 to 2.6% in June. Who'd have thought it? And the owner-occupier housing costs, look at where that has come down to. And that in June stayed at 3.3%. It has absolutely, it's been an extraordinary recovery. And these are the people that are paying these costs are the people that are going to potentially be house buyers. So that's a very good news story. A quick run through the indices. We've all talked about the Rightmove numbers, 1% down from June into July. It's a much larger drop than normal for that time of year. No surprise. We've got a little bit of oversupply. It's asking prices. Asking prices. These are not the price that properties get sold for. And you can see pretty much universal, not in Wales and not in the northwest and east of England. Other than that, every other area in the UK has fallen. The nationwide, in their June numbers, the July numbers come out this week, but in their June numbers, they reckon that prices went up 2.2%. No, they didn't. They didn't. Ask anybody that knows and they'll tell you that they didn't. But anyway, I thought I'd put it up there just to give you a laugh, really. And the only reason I put this one up, this would normally be the Halifax, but of course, dear old Halifax is gone. So the old granddaddy of house price indices that's been going since 1983, survived 43 years, has finally gone, and Lloyds has rebranded it. It's now the Lloyds House Price Index. It doesn't have quite the same ring about it, does it? Well, anyway, suffice it to say that they've got their annual change at 0.6%. I think that's much closer to it. But of course, we don't actually have to worry about that now because we've got the Henry, haven't we? We've got the Henry Dynamic Composite Index. So if we take this chart and we put the other indices on there, so there's your land registry. That's the gold standard, but it's always out of date. There's Zoopla's index. That's always a pretty good one. I think that's a good algorithm. The green one up there is the nationwide. That algorithm has gone bonkers recently. I think it's weighted a long way towards the northwest. And then the blue one, well, it was what used to be the Halifax in old money, but of course is now the Lloyds index. You've got an enormous range. So we've tagged them 2 years ago, January 2024 to 100. That's what we've taken as our benchmark. And this is then trend. We're not interested, are we, in what the average price is? It's meaningless, absolute meaningless nonsense. All we want to know is what is the trend? Is the trend moving up, moving down? And this will inform decisions across the industry. So in our extraordinary algorithm, where we actually take the land registry as our benchmark, and we then introduce elements of those other indices based on how well they're performing against the benchmark, we have the HDCI, the Henry Dynamic Composite Index. Let me tell you, this is currently the most reliable property price index in the UK. And you heard that here first, in my opinion. Oh, sorry, I should have added that bit in the end, shouldn't I? And here's the Henry Composite Index, and it's sitting there at the moment at just about 105 from where it was 2 years ago. But that trend is gently upwards at the moment. So where's it going to go next? Well, for me to be able to be confident about where that's going to go next, I want to add into the equation the consumer confidence numbers, including the burn and bounce on the end there. There we go. I've actually even named it the burn and bounce. I've not had a call from him yet, but still, I've credited him with that. Let's take away the spaghetti and just leave the only numbers that matter. So here's the HDCI. Here are the consumer confidence numbers. The consumer confidence numbers that affect behaviour now will actually affect prices in 3 to 4 months' time. So I'm taking that index and I am moving it forward 3 months. So you can see now that's where that sits. So where is that market going next? Well, I'll give you my take on where it's going next. These are the Q4 prospects. Supply exceeding demand. That will keep prices down through the summer, no question, but not volumes in my view. The needs-based buyers, they are going to react really quickly to any improvement in conditions. Be prepared, everybody. Don't wait for this market to come to you, because I believe that there are really good prospects in Q4 and you need to be taking advantage of it. So I think we've got a summer that looks like this. So we have got a difficult downward trend through July, August, September, and then I think October, November, December looks like that. That, by the way, only takes us back to about 104.5 index from January 2024. It means that prices are going to end up at the end of the year almost exactly where they were at the start of the year, and exactly where I forecast in December 2025. And unlike some of the other forecasters, sorry, a little bit of a frog in the throat there, I haven't changed that forecast from start to finish. That, I believe, represents a really big opportunity. Okay then, so to summarise, with my help from my friend here, at the moment there's no sign of peace in the Gulf, but even that, I'm still, okay, call me Pollyanna if you like, call me an optimist, but I believe that the forces are so great that there is every prospect that situation could improve. Interest rates are less likely to fall than they were, but I still don't think there will be an increase this year. And unless, well, I'm no economist, I always make that point, so things might change. But as things are right now, I think that we're going to see those interest rates holding level. There has definitely been more of a burn and bounce than burn 'em in the bog. Whether that will stay the way it is when people start to realise that nothing comes for nothing, who knows? That could affect things further down the line. But for the moment, that is also going to just sit very nicely with the whole playbook of there being an upturn in Q4. Tough summer then, very tough summer. Huge potential for Q4. So the smart ones, the agile ones, they are going to take advantage of that potential and will do well. Okay, prices, as I've said all the way along, will end the year pretty much on the level that they ended 2025, and I still believe that we will see 1.2 million in volume. Okay, we have yet to announce the date of Dirt 4, but we will do that very, very soon. We're just trying to get our dates organised in our new home here. I hope you liked it. And I've run about 3 minutes over time, for which I apologise, but I hope you think that was worthwhile. There could be a really good Q4 in prospect. Enjoy the good weather, because who knows, bit of luck, that might end soon and we'll get some rain, and I will see you towards the end of August.